Welcome back, coin hunters and history lovers. Today we're diving into a small piece of American pocket change that most people overlook, but it could hold a fascinating story and surprising collector value. I'm talking about the legendary 1970 D. Washington quarter, a coin honoring the first president of the United States, George Washington, and minted at the historic Denver Mint. Millions of these quarters once passed through everyday hands across America, buying groceries, paying for gas, and rattling in pockets. But what if one of them was actually worth far more than 25 cents? In this video, we'll uncover the hidden details, rare features, and collector secrets behind this classic American coin that many people still have sitting in jars or drawers at home. So before we reveal what makes some of these quarters incredibly desirable to collectors, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned, because the next coin you find could be a small piece of American history hiding in plain sight. Let's get started. First up in the 1970 D. Washington quarter begins during a fascinating period in American coinage history when the United States was adjusting to major changes in the metal composition of its everyday coins. Minted in 1970 at the Denver Mint, this quarter continued the long-running design that honors George Washington, the first president of the United States. Introduced originally in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of Washington's birth, the Washington quarter had already become one of the most recognizable coins in American circulation by 1970. However, by this time the coin had already gone through a dramatic transformation. Only 5 years earlier, in 1965, the United States removed silver from circulating quarters due to rising silver prices and coin shortages. As a result, the 1970 D quarter was struck in a copper-nickel clad composition rather than the traditional 90% silver that collectors once cherished, marking it as part of the modern era of American coinage while still carrying the classic design loved by generations. On the obverse side of the 1970 D Washington quarter, collectors immediately recognized the iconic portrait of George Washington facing left, a design created by renowned American sculptor John Flanagan. Flanagan design was selected through a national competition in the early 1930s, and it has remained one of the most enduring portraits ever used on a United States coin. Above Washington's head appears the powerful national motto Liberty, while the phrase "In God We Trust" is placed to the left of the portrait. At the bottom edge of the coin sits the date, 1970, and just to the right of the ribbon near Washington's ponytail is the small but important D mint mark, indicating that the coin was struck at the Denver Mint. This tiny letter might seem insignificant to casual observers, but to collectors it is essential because it identifies the coin's place of origin and helps determine its rarity and collectible value in the numismatic world. Turning to the reverse side of the 1970 D. Washington quarter, viewers encounter a bold and patriotic design centered around the majestic American eagle. The eagle, wings spread wide, clutches a bundle of arrows in its talons, symbolizing the nation's readiness to defend itself, while olive branches beneath represent peace. Above the eagle's head appears the inscription, United States of America, and below it the denomination $quarter. Between these phrases is the national motto, E pluribus unum, meaning, out of many one. This design perfectly reflects the spirit and identity of the United States during the late 20th century, reminding Americans of their shared strength and unity. Although the reverse design remained unchanged for decades, its powerful symbolism continued to resonate with collectors and historians alike, making the Washington quarter a small but meaningful representation of American ideals. From a technical perspective, the 1970 D. Washington quarter weighs approximately 5.67 grams and has a diameter of 24.3 millimeters. Unlike earlier silver quarters, this coin is composed of an outer layer of copper-nickel bonded to a pure copper core, a layered structure that can often be seen along the coin's edge. This composition change was introduced by the United States Mint in response to rising silver prices during the 1960s, which had caused people to hoard silver coins. By switching to clad coinage, the government ensured that quarters could continue circulating without being melted down for their precious metal value. Although this made the coins less valuable in terms of metal content, it also marked a new era in American currency, one that allowed coins like the 1970 D quarter to remain widely available in everyday transactions. In terms of mintage, the 1970 D Washington quarter was produced in large numbers, with the United States Mint striking more than 417 million examples at the Denver Mint. Because of this high production figure, most circulated examples are still fairly common today. However, the story becomes more interesting when collectors begin examining coins in high grades. Uncirculated examples that retain their original mint luster and sharp details are far more desirable than worn coins. Additionally, collectors carefully look for pieces with exceptional strike quality and minimal contact marks, as these features can significantly increase a coin's value within the numismatic market. Another fascinating aspect of the 1970 D. Washington quarter is the possibility of mint errors and varieties. Occasionally, coins from this year appear with die cracks, off-center strikes, or double die features, all of which can attract serious attention from collectors. Error coins are particularly exciting because they represent mistakes made during the minting process, making them far rarer than standard coins. When such errors are discovered, they can dramatically increase the coin's value, sometimes turning an ordinary pocket change coin into a prized collectible. For enthusiasts who enjoy searching through rolls of coins or old collections, the thrill of discovering one of these rare varieties adds another layer of excitement to the hobby. In the modern coin market, the value of a 1970 D. Washington quarter depends heavily on its condition. Circulated coins are usually worth only their face value of 25 cents because they were produced in such large quantities. However, uncirculated examples graded by professional services, such as Professional Coin Grading Service or Numismatic Guarantee Company, can sell for significantly higher prices. High-grade coins with brilliant surfaces and strong details can fetch dozens or even hundreds of dollars depending on their certification grade. This dramatic difference in value demonstrates how condition plays a crucial role in determining the desirability of modern coins. Beyond its monetary value, the 1970 D. Washington quarter also represents an important chapter in American history. The early 1970s were a time of social change, technological advancement, and global political tension. Coins circulating during this period silently witnessed the everyday lives of millions of Americans. From grocery stores and vending machines to gas stations and laundromats, the quarter was one of the most frequently used coins in daily commerce. Each worn example that survives today carries a silent story of the countless hands it passed through, making it not just a piece of currency, but a tiny artifact of American life during that era. Today, collectors continue to search for high-quality examples of the 1970 D. Washington quarter, appreciating both its historical significance and its place within the long-running Washington quarter series. Whether discovered in an old coin jar, inherited from a family collection, or purchased from a coin dealer, this coin remains a reminder that even ordinary pocket change can hold fascinating stories about the past. For numismatists and history enthusiasts alike, the 1970 D quarter proves that sometimes the most overlooked coins can still one of the most exciting things about the 1970 D. Washington quarter is how collectors analyze the coin's strike quality and surface details to determine whether it might be an exceptional example. Coins produced at the Denver Mint during 1970 were generally well struck, but because of the high production volume, many pieces show contact marks or weak details caused by the minting process and circulation. Advanced collectors carefully inspect the high points of the design, especially the hair above the ear of George Washington on the obverse and the feathers of the eagle on the reverse. When these areas appear sharp and well-defined, it often indicates that the coin received a strong strike from fresh dies. Such examples are much more desirable because they better represent how the coin originally looked when it first left the mint decades ago. Another reason this coin continues to attract attention is its role in the long and historic Washington quarter series that began in 1932. The portrait of George Washington has appeared on billions of quarters produced by the United States Mint, making it one of the most familiar images in American currency. Yet each decade of the series reflects different changes in the country's economic and manufacturing history. Next up in the George Washington 1974 Washington quarter dollar may look like just another common coin sitting quietly in a jar or pocket. But behind its simple appearance lies a fascinating story connected to American history, economics, and the evolution of U.S. currency. When collectors and historians examine this coin closely, they see far more than 25 cents. They see a symbol of American identity that has circulated through decades of change. The quarter design honoring George Washington was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of Washington's birth, and by 1974 it had already become one of the most recognizable coins in American daily life. Millions of Americans handled these coins every day, unknowingly passing around small pieces of history that represented the nation's first president and the enduring legacy of the United States. The portrait featured on the 1974 quarter was originally designed by the talented sculptor John Flanagan, whose work captured the calm strength and dignity of George Washington. The obverse side of the coin shows Washington facing left, surrounded by the inscriptions "Liberty," "In God We Trust," and the date 1974. The design was inspired by a bust of Washington created by the famous French sculptor Jean-Antoine Houdon, making the coin's artwork deeply rooted in historical sculpture. On the reverse side appears the powerful American eagle holding arrows and olive branches, symbolizing both military strength and a desire for peace. Above the eagle are the words "United States of America" and "E Pluribus Unum," while the denomination quarter dollar rests below, creating a bold and patriotic composition. One important detail collectors pay attention to is where the 1974 quarter was minted. During that year, these coins were produced in 3 major facilities of the United States Mint: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Coins minted in Philadelphia usually carry no mint mark, while those from Denver include a small D mint mark. The San Francisco facility mainly produced special proof versions designed for collectors rather than circulation. Each mint produced millions of coins, but subtle differences in strike quality, mint marks, and preservation levels can dramatically affect a coin's collector value today. Because of these differences, 2 quarters with the same date might be worth vastly different amounts depending on their condition and rarity. Another interesting aspect of the 1974 Washington quarter is its metal composition, which reflects a major change in American coinage history. Before 1965, U.S. quarters were made primarily from silver, but rising silver prices forced the government to switch to a copper-nickel-clad composition. By 1974, all circulating quarters were made from this copper-nickel mixture layered over a pure copper core. While this means the coin itself contains no silver, it still represents the era when the United States adjusted its currency system to economic realities. The coin measures about 24.3 millimeters in diameter and weighs approximately 5.67 grams, making it sturdy enough to survive decades of circulation while still maintaining the same familiar size Americans recognized for generations. For collectors, condition is everything when evaluating a 1974 quarter. A coin that spent decades moving through cash registers and pockets will show wear on Washington's hair, the eagle's feathers, and the fine details around the rim. However, coins that remained untouched in mint sets or were carefully stored can still appear almost flawless even after 50 years. These high-grade coins are graded by professional organizations and may receive ratings such as MS 65 or higher. In such pristine condition, even a relatively common coin can become surprisingly valuable, especially when collectors compete to obtain the best examples available. One of the most fascinating topics among coin enthusiasts is the possibility of minting errors. Occasionally, during the production process at the United States Mint, mistakes occurred that created unusual variations. Some 1974 quarters have been discovered with doubled die features, off-center strikes, or other production anomalies that make them highly desirable among collectors. Because these errors are rare and often unique, they can transform an ordinary 25-cent coin into a collectible worth far more than its face value. Stories of collectors discovering valuable error coins in pocket change continue to inspire people to examine their old coins more carefully. Historically, the 1974 quarter circulated during a very interesting time in American society. The United States was experiencing major political and cultural changes during the 1970s, and coins like this were present in everyday transactions, from buying groceries to paying for bus rides or vending machines. Each coin effectively traveled through countless hands, silently witnessing moments of ordinary American life. Over time, these coins became small historical artifacts, reflecting the economic activity and social changes of that decade. Holding a 1974 quarter today can feel like holding a tiny time capsule from that era. From a market perspective, most circulated 1974 quarters are still worth close to their face value, but certain examples have achieved impressive auction results. Exceptional high-grade coins, proof versions from San Francisco, or rare error varieties can sometimes sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars, depending on collector demand. This wide range of potential values is what makes coin collecting so exciting. A simple coin that once bought a soda could now become a treasured collectible if it happens to possess the right combination of rarity, condition, and historical significance. Beyond the basic history of the coin, serious collectors often study the subtle varieties that appeared among 1974 Washington quarters during production. Even when millions of coins are struck, slight differences can occur due to die wear, polishing, or adjustments inside the minting presses. These tiny variations may appear in the lettering, the sharpness of the eagle's feathers, or the depth of George Washington's portrait. To the average person, these details might seem insignificant, but to experienced numismatists, they can reveal valuable information about how and when a coin was made. In some cases, collectors have identified die varieties that make certain coins far rarer than others produced the same year, which is why many enthusiasts carefully examine each 1974 quarter under magnification. Another fascinating factor influencing the value of a 1974 quarter is the quality of the strike. Coins are produced when large metal presses stamp blank planchets with engraved dies, transferring the design onto the coin's surface. However, not every strike is identical. Some coins were struck with stronger pressure, resulting in exceptionally sharp details that highlight the artistry of designer John Flanagan. When the strike is particularly crisp, collectors can clearly see Washington's hair strands, the eagle's feather patterns, and the fine lines surrounding the inscriptions. These sharply struck coins are often far more desirable, especially when they are preserved in mint-state condition, because they showcase the design exactly as it was intended to appear. Proof versions of the 1974 Washington quarter also play an important role in the coin's collecting story. These special coins were produced at the United States Mint facility in San Francisco using carefully polished dies and specially prepared blanks. Unlike regular coins made for circulation, proof coins were struck multiple times to create extremely sharp details and mirror-like surfaces. The fields of the coin appear almost reflective, while the raised design elements look frosted, creating a beautiful contrast that collectors admire. These proof quarters were usually sold in protective sets to collectors, meaning many examples have survived in excellent condition even decades later. Over time, the 1974 Washington quarter has also become part of a broader narrative in American numismatics. The coin belongs to the long-running Washington Quarter series that began in 1932 and continued for many decades before later design changes, such as the State Quarters program. Because of this long history, collectors often build complete sets of Washington quarters spanning many different years and mint marks. Within such collections, the 1974 issue represents the mid-1970s era of American coinage, a time when the nation was approaching the historic United States bicentennial, which would later inspire special commemorative coins in 1975 and 1976. In the end, the 1974 George Washington quarter dollar represents far more than a piece of everyday currency. It embodies American heritage, artistic craftsmanship, and the enduring image of the nation's first president, George Washington. From its carefully designed portrait to its symbolic eagle reverse, every element tells a story about the values and identity of the United States. Whether found in an old coin jar, inherited from a family collection, or purchased by a passionate numismatist, this humble quarter continues to capture the imagination of collectors around the world, proving that even the most common coins can carry extraordinary history within their metal. Next up, in the 1968 Washington quarter may look like a simple everyday coin at first glance, but behind its modest appearance lies a fascinating story tied to American history, economic change, and the evolution of U.S. coinage. Introduced as part of the long-running Washington Quarter series first launched in 1932 to honor the 200th birthday of George Washington, the 1968 issue reflects an important transition period in U.S. minting practices. During the late 1960s, the United States was responding to a major coin shortage caused by rising silver prices and widespread hoarding of earlier silver coins. As a result, the 1968 quarter was struck using a copper-nickel clad composition instead of the traditional 90% silver used before 1965. This change marked a major turning point in the history of American circulating coinage and made the 1968 Washington quarter one of the early representatives of the modern clad coin era. The design of the Washington quarter remained largely unchanged in 1968 and continued to showcase the iconic left-facing portrait of George Washington on the obverse. This famous portrait was created by sculptor John Flanagan, whose design was inspired by a bust of Washington sculpted by Jean-Antoine Houdon in the 18th century. The obverse features the word liberty above Washington's head, the motto "In God We Trust" to the left, and the date 1968 beneath the portrait. The reverse side carries the powerful image of a heraldic eagle with outstretched wings clutching arrows and olive branches, symbolizing both military strength and peace. Above the eagle is the national motto, E Pluribus Unum, while the denomination $quarter appears below. Even decades later, this classic design remains one of the most recognizable coin images in American history. One of the most historically significant details of the 1968 Washington quarter is the reappearance of mint marks on the obverse after a brief absence earlier in the decade. During the coin shortage of the mid-1960s, the United States Mint temporarily removed mint marks from coins to discourage collectors from hoarding specific varieties. However, in 1968 mint marks returned and were placed on the obverse side, just to the right of Washington's ponytail. The two primary varieties are the 1968D, produced at the Denver Mint, and the 1968S, produced at the San Francisco Mint. This subtle detail makes the 1968 issue particularly interesting for collectors who pay close attention to mint marks and production locations. From a production standpoint, the 1968 Washington quarter was minted in enormous quantities to meet the demands of a growing American economy. The Denver Mint struck more than 246 million quarters that year, ensuring that the coin circulated widely across the United States. Meanwhile, the San Francisco Mint produced special proof versions specifically for collectors. These proof coins were struck with highly polished dies and specially prepared planchets, giving them a mirror-like finish and exceptionally sharp details. Because proof coins were not intended for everyday circulation, many examples survive today in pristine condition, making them attractive to collectors who appreciate high-quality minting craftsmanship. The composition of the 1968 Washington quarter also highlights the broader economic realities of the era. By the mid-1960s, the intrinsic value of silver had begun to exceed the face value of many circulating coins, which encouraged people to hoard silver coins rather than spend them. To address this issue, the United States government introduced a clad composition consisting of an outer layer of copper-nickel bonded to a pure copper core. This innovative structure maintained the coin's durability and familiar appearance while significantly reducing production costs. The 1968 quarter therefore represents one of the earliest generations of modern clad coins, a system that remains the standard for U.S. circulating coinage today. For collectors and numismatists, the 1968 Washington quarter can still hold surprising value depending on its condition and variety. Most circulated examples are worth only slightly more than their face value, but coins in uncirculated or near-perfect condition can command significantly higher prices. Coins graded MS-65 or higher by professional grading services may sell for dozens or even hundreds of dollars, especially if they display exceptional luster and minimal contact marks. Proof versions from San Francisco are also popular among collectors because of their mirror-like surfaces and crisp design details, which showcase the artistry of the original engraving. Another factor that increases the interest in 1968 quarters is the possibility of minting errors or unusual varieties. Throughout U.S. coin history, production errors have occasionally created rare coins that later became highly valuable. Off-center strikes, doubled dies, and other striking anomalies can transform an ordinary coin into a collector's treasure. Although such errors are relatively rare, they continue to attract the attention of dedicated numismatists who carefully examine their coins in search of unique and valuable discoveries. The 1968 Washington quarter also serves as a cultural time capsule reflecting life in the United States during the late 1960s. This was a period marked by social change, political upheaval, and technological progress. Coins from this era passed through millions of hands during everyday transactions, buying groceries, paying bus fares, or feeding parking meters. Each coin quietly witnessed the daily life of Americans during a transformative decade. For collectors today, holding a 1968 quarter is like holding a small piece of that history, a reminder of the economic and cultural shifts that shaped modern America. Today, more than half a century later, the 1968 Washington quarter continues to capture the attention of collectors and history enthusiasts alike. While it may not be the rarest coin in U.S. numismatics, its historical context, design heritage, and role in the transition to clad coinage give it lasting significance. Whether discovered in pocket change or preserved in a collector's album, the coin represents the enduring legacy of George Washington and the evolving story of American currency. For many collectors, the simple act of examining a 1968 quarter can spark curiosity about history, economics, and the artistry behind one of the most widely circulated coins in the United States. That the 1968 Washington quarter also represents an important milestone in how modern American coins were manufactured. By the late 1960s, the United States Mint had already fully transitioned to the copper-nickel clad composition, and 1968 became one of the earliest years when this system operated at full scale. The layered metal construction used a pure copper core sandwiched between two outer layers of copper and nickel. This design not only reduced reliance on expensive silver, but also produced a highly durable coin capable of surviving decades of circulation. Many 1968 quarters remain in use even today, demonstrating the remarkable strength of the clad structure. This technological change also allowed the mint to produce coins more efficiently and economically, ensuring that the nation's rapidly growing economy would never again suffer from the coin shortages experienced earlier in the decade. Another fascinating aspect of the 1968 quarter is the detailed artistry that continues to captivate coin enthusiasts. The portrait of George Washington remains one of the most recognizable images in American coinage. Designed by sculptor John Flanagan, the portrait captures Washington with a calm and dignified expression, symbolizing leadership, resilience, and national unity. The reverse side, featuring the majestic American eagle, reflects traditional heraldic symbolism that dates back to the founding of the United States. The eagle's wings spread wide across the coin, holding arrows that represent defense and olive branches that represent peace. For many historians and collectors, this design reflects the values and ideals that the young American nation sought to project to the world. Collectors are also particularly interested in high-grade examples of the 1968 quarter because condition plays a massive role in determining value. Coins that circulated for many years usually display scratches, wear, and fading details. However, coins that were carefully stored soon after minting can remain in near-perfect condition for decades. When professional grading services evaluate such coins, they assign them a numerical grade on the Sheldon scale, which ranges from 1 to 70. A 1968 quarter graded MS 67 or higher is extremely rare and can attract strong demand among serious collectors. These coins often display bright original luster, sharp details in Washington's hair and the eagle's feathers, and almost no visible contact marks. The 1968 S-proof quarter is another important variety that attracts attention from collectors around the world. Produced at the San Francisco Mint, proof coins were struck specifically for collectors rather than general circulation. Specially polished dies and planchets created coins with mirror-like backgrounds and frosted design elements. When viewed under light, these proof quarters display a dramatic contrast between the reflective surface and the raised images. Many collectors purchase proof sets from this year because they represent some of the finest examples of modern minting technology, and they preserve the design details exactly as the engraver intended.